Okay, it's recording. Okay, welcome to our very first office hours. We're doing one of our most requested topics today, meal planning, and then just in general, how to make meals work every week. There's a lot of feeding little humans and the big humans in our lives. And so this is a topic that is really popular and one that comes up a lot when we're talking to our parents. And so we wanted to dig into it. We're going to focus a lot on the concept of meal planning. I'll just say very candidly that I've always been someone that resisted the idea of meal planning. So when my girls were younger, like maybe, toddlers, preschool, I really didn't think that I was a person that meal planned. We would just sort of either wing it or our nanny would take care of what our girls ate. And then my husband and I would just kind of forage for dinner. And as we kind of transitioned into school and more logistics and more just pieces and me traveling a little bit more, it just got a little bit harder and harder to do. And so until one day, I just took our whiteboard in the kitchen and just wrote down like the days of the week and then just started to write down the different meals. And I bought groceries just to the things that I wrote down. And lo and behold, that was meal planning. And that little system was something that really worked well for me and my family. The only places that it didn't, though, was, obviously if I was traveling, I couldn't do any changes on the fly. It was on a whiteboard. And so as we thought about building out Milo, it's a lot of the stuff that we think about, which is how do we get the end goal, which is we don't want to have to answer what's for dinner today. We don't want to have food go to waste. We don't want to spend extra money or do takeout any more than we need to or want to. And so those are some of the things that are at the core of what we're going to talk about today. First, I'll just dive a little bit more into what is the concept of meal planning, but also what are some of the things that make meals and eating and feeding people work a little bit smoother, and just some tips and ideas. Then we'll kind of move over to what are some of the tools that you have? Certainly, we can talk to how to use Milo and the meal planner to be able to do that. So everyone's got the plan, how to access new recipes if you're looking for something, or let's just say you've got broccoli in the fridge. You can just start typing in broccoli and find some really easy, yummy recipes for that. But we also have other tools, just a simple PDF or just a simple kind of whiteboard kind of idea, just to get you into the groove of it. I think the most important thing that for folks listening or planning here, out of 30 minutes, I'd love for you to walk away with a better sense of how you can make mealtime work in your family, and just different tools, whether it's paper, it's a whiteboard, or it's just kind of in your head, or it's sending it to Milo and using the meal planner. I think any of these types of things that has a little bit of progress every single weekend or week is success. So the first thing I'll just go into is, what is meal planning? Like I mentioned, meal planning really has kind of two components. One is thinking about what does food and meals mean to you and your family, and then the planning kind of part is like the logistics bit of it. What options kind of work best for your family? So if you're thinking about this right now, I would say we often don't spend a lot of time of thinking about the values or the philosophy level. And that's kind of important because you need to spend a little bit of time of saying, how important is, not how important is food, but what is the role of food in my family? I know for myself, sometimes you go from the infant stage into the toddler stage and you're just flying into the next stages. You don't give yourself a lot of time to think about like what's optimal. You're just trying to kind of keep your head above water. And so it took a little while for me to figure out that food was a way, and meals, home cooked meals, were a way for me, and was really important to me as a way for our family to come together around the dinner table, around the notion of taking care of my family, eating healthy, all of those pieces. And so there are some really deep kind of philosophical and values-based things related to food that frustrated me when we threw out food or that we ordered takeout yet again, even more than the cost and all that kind of stuff. And so what I started to realize is that what good looked like for me and my family was home cooking 4 days a week. Typically that was Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. So that covered the big chunk of the week when we would be busy kind of doing lots of things. If we could manage to have some level of home cooked meals for dinner, that was good. And then Friday would be our takeout night. And then Saturday, Sunday was just like a wing it. And so we got into that rhythm. That was what meal planning looked like for us. And so once we started to get an understanding of like, okay, that's what good looks like, then it was okay, for those 4 slots, what are we actually going to make? And so for this, I would recommend that folks, just sit down and have a little bit of a thought of just for yourself. There's no good or right answers here. It's just simply, what does good look like for you? If you're a family that really values smooth kind of logistics and just running things, your plan might look a little bit more like meal kits or prepared food, or even strategic takeout. If you're someone that values a little bit more of the home cooked stuff, you might start looking for recipes that are super simple that you can do in 20 minutes, one dish that you can still be fast and not be a super pain on weeknights, but you can still accomplish your goal of weeknight home cooking. And so just taking a moment and trying to figure out what are your values that you're kind of going into, and what is the role of that. Then you can try to take a look at, there's a couple of different ways of types of meals. Of course, there's fresh and kind of homemade, what we would typically think of cooking meals. But now there's so many other options. There's really great frozen options that you can just have in ready to go in the fridge. I've made up a huge store of everything from fish and chips that I can supplement with veggies. We've got really great, our girls love this type of, they call it Chinese chicken, but it's, I think it's, just sweet and sour chicken that's frozen, and we can just heat that up really quickly. Again, add some veggies, and that's dinner. So you've got a whole range of frozen options that I think every family should just have in their freezer for a day that they just want to call an audible and just do that. Um, then there's a huge range, as I'm sure most people are aware, of meal kits, meal prep services that has like a middle ground where you do need to do a little bit of advanced planning of ordering that and selecting what those meals are, but then you can just slot those in. Right now, my family's doing that 2 nights a week, and it's actually kind of nice because I just know that at 5:30 or 6 o'clock, we can just do whatever it tells me to do with that kit, and then we can kind of go with there. And then the last is obviously takeout. And I think sometimes when we talk about meal plan, folks don't think about takeout as a actual like option. They think about it as either failure, or they think about it in terms of that only happens when I didn't do all the other things. I actually just very much disagree. I think when you are intentional about, the kids have baseball and we're not going to be able to get to it all, and it's not worth it. So why don't we just order takeout, and they'll be ready to go when we get home? Or as I mentioned, on Friday nights, I'm just too tired. It's the end of the week, and it's kind of a fun thing for the family to choose what they want to get as takeout. And so takeout done deliberately can be a really great option to kind of put in. And again, you can think about like the 5 kind of places that all of your family really enjoys using. So that's the base kind of overview of meal planning at a high level. Once you start getting into the different types of meals that you can do, there's a bunch of ways you could also approach it. You can say for each of the slots, every Monday you're going to have a theme. So we have a little bit more detail in our how-to guides. But for example, every Monday is, let's just say, Mexican. And so whether it's tacos or quesadillas or enchiladas, every single Monday is going to be something on that theme, and it kind of helps you have a frame, and then you can start doing some of the more specifics. Lots of different theme ideas. You can have Mexican, you can have pasta, you can have meat and potatoes, which is to say some kind of either fish or meat, and then some kind of vegetable. In the early days when I was just getting my feet under me of just getting into the habit of meal planning, I really leaned on themes. Monday was Mexican. We would do tacos every Monday, and it was really nice to know that was what we're going to do. Tuesday, we did some kind of Asian dish. Wednesday, we would do pasta. And so it's just kind of nice to know, maybe I don't know what the specifics are, but that's going to be the general theme. It also helps with the family to just kind of know the general thing of what to expect. And by the way, I'm talking in terms of myself kind of taking this on. In my family, I am the one that takes on sort of like from the beginning to the end, a lot of the food and the meals thing, just simply because I really enjoy it. And it's something that I do. But a lot of the tools that we're trying to build out are to enable collaboration on some of this stuff. So everything from what are we going to be, how do we think about food in our family, to what are we going to be eating for this week, to then what is the grocery list and who's going to go get those groceries. Those are all different places that it can look like different collaboration for different families. Um, so we're going to, for this next kind of piece of things, we would love for folks to actually follow along with either a PDF or a piece of paper where we can just kind of go into and do a mock kind of meal plan. And to start, um, just take a look at let's just even take the week kind of coming ahead, and take a look at what kind of logistics you have going on. And then by that, I mean, do any of the kids have classes? Or is there a day that one of you has particularly late meetings, or a day just filled with just a harder day? On those days, you're going to want to have a little bit more of an easier and lighter kind of plan at the end of the day. Just knowing you're probably not going to have a lot of energy for a super in-depth kind of thing. Then look at the other slots in the week when you might want to go on the other end, which is to do maybe a family dinner, a weekly family dinner. I know that's important for my family. And so we'll do something on Sunday nights, and including my parents even. And that's now started to become more of not only a habit, but kind of a tradition and ritual. There are other days during the week when my girls are now starting to get a little bit older, but it's one of those ones that we're saying, nope, this is going to be a night that we're all going to be sitting around the dinner table. So if you start to take a look at your week and you start to block in or block out, what are some of the logistical layers? Whether it is, you're going to definitely need something that's kind of like 10, 15 minutes or less, all the way through to, nope, we actually want to make a thing out of dinner or our meals. Kind of start to write those things in first. The next thing you're going to want to do is make a list, and it could be, I don't know, 10, 15 items or like dishes, and do it over some period of time. Write all your go-to meals. They could be faves that the whole family for this phase right now, because I admit that our family goes through like, I love it, and then they don't like it. But write down a list of your faves. Write down a list of the fast ones that you could make up in your sleep. It could be anything from, like omelets, and by the way, breakfast for dinner is a killer awesome one when you want to make something fun but super easy. It's one of those ones that is going to really come in handy, just have in your back pocket. But make a list of the really easy ones that make you feel good but are super fast and you could do at any time. And then make a list of some of the fun ones, which are a little bit more in-depth meals. Maybe you haven't really mastered it. For me, it's like kimchi fried rice. It's something that I really love, but it takes a little bit to actually get right. Once you have that list, this is going to be sort of your core that you're going to draw on for every single week. You can, of course, incorporate new recipes, and I think that's sometimes it's really fun. But I think sometimes folks have this expectation that every single week is supposed to be something new and different. And I think that's a little bit of a trap as well, which is, again, be intentional about whether you want to add one or try out one new recipe on a day that you might be able to get into the kitchen a little bit sooner, and you might have energy for extra dishes if it turns to be really messy. The bigger thing for me is that we sometimes think about the food and we don't think about the realities of our lives and like the kids' schedules and our energy levels and all that other kind of stuff. And if we don't think about that, that's what makes the actual food part end up being a little bit more complicated. And so meal planning to me is actually taking a look at the whole thing. So now you've got a general sense of what your week is going to look like. You've got a whole list of what your maybe go-tos and your faves are. And one thing that we're actually working on with Milo is that we want to actually cross-share. What are some of these really great recipes that you have, and like, I'd love to see what's in your list. And then we can be able to use that to supplement our kind of things for newness. But you take those items and then the list that you already have, and then think about the week that's coming forward and just start slotting a couple in. And it can be just as simple as my whiteboard approach, which is you just have Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, weekends if you'd like, and you just start writing words in. They don't have to be anything more than just like tacos and pizza or fish and chips. That right there is meal planning. You take that, you you can print it out, you can PDF it, you can post it on your fridge, and that is meal planning. You tell everyone in your family that if you want to know what's for school lunches or what's for dinner, you're going to look in this one place. And even for yourself, one thing that I've really loved, biased, of course, but of Milo, which is I don't hold the meal plans in my head anymore. Used to be that I'd be like, okay, what day is it today? Okay, the girls got baseball. Okay, that means it's going to be this thing. Or I'd have to go over to the whiteboard in the kitchen to be able to see it. Now I literally can just, pull it up and kind of see it. And that's freed up brain space. Now no one asks me what's for dinner. Everyone knows where to look. And those are little ways that make something like meal planning also actually a win. Because again, it isn't necessarily just about the food that we're going to eat. It's the whole system of it. It's the habit of actually planning, buying those groceries, and then actually using them and feeling really great that you're having less waste. You're using all of those things. And it then just starts working in a really great, you can call it a habit loop, a virtuous cycle, whatever it is, but that ends up feeling pretty good. I
And
will say, yep.
something I'll just add that I have found really interesting is there's always two parts of the communication. There's the communication of what it is that you're eating that week, but to your point about having your go-to frozen meals or your go-to easy peasy recipes, so much of that lives in our head. And whether you're a paper family, a Google Doc family, or eventually through Milo, taking a moment to write down those easy frozen meals or those easy recipes, if you're running late from a meeting or you have a new babysitter or grandma or grandpa are in town, it creates a place for everybody to reference those. And so, we're sometimes used to telling people what's the meals for the week, but sometimes it's nice to also say, hey, go pick one of those easy peasy recipes or one of those frozens. And that's also how we start to get others involved with that
That's
planning.
exactly right. And that I'm glad that you brought that up because one of the emotional labor parts of this is, and I just know this because this is me, which is if I were to say, okay, sure, just take care of dinner. There's always this little bit of it of like, are they going to do it in the way that I wanted to have it done? And that's not actually fair because I do trust the other people in my life, my kids' life, to do the thing. But for me, it's because I've built up expertise around like what they like or the types of food that we eat or what's in the fridge, that there is a more optimal solution or answer than not. And so when pizza is ordered, but we have these really great fresh veggies in the fridge, that frustrates me. Or when something like just plain pasta is made, when again, yet again, there was something like, that we could have made just as easily in the fridge, that frustrates me. And so sometimes these are the points where if all of that stuff is living in a central place, like in Milo, then my husband or a nanny or my mom can actually just go in there and say, oh, yep, I can just pull those fish and chips out of the freezer and then make that. And everyone feels good because now we're collaborating
And
and not.
Alyssa brought up a great point on chat too, especially with toddlers. Their eating preferences are constantly changing. And so documenting, here's what they're willing to eat right now. And I'm, sure that's changing quickly, but that way it's not just in your head and somebody else can see that as well. So thanks for
That's
mentioning.
exactly right. So we'll turn in a moment to Christina, if you want to take us through a quick spin of some of the tools that are available in Milo, just to be able to actually understand what I've actually talked about, where on the week or the weekend before, you want to start thinking about some of those pieces. You want to start adding some of the go-tos that you can then access, and then you can have it printed to not only your week canvas digitally, but then you can actually PDF it to be able to print it. So we'll turn our attention to that. The last thing I just wanted to say is that so much about food is tied into identity, is tied into just being a parent. And there's so many, phases and struggles with picky eating. I've got a 6-year-old right now that is going through a real fierce picky eating phase. And that's all to say that can throw wrenches into meal planning. You could be in a really great groove and then someone goes traveling or like whatever else it is. And then it just kind of throws it up in the air. I think those are all like, it's just normal, it's life. And I think the point is that the more that you get into just like the habit of doing a thing, you'll be able to come back to it. The more that all of these recipes are already in a place or in Milo, the more that you'll get back to it. So again, this is very much not about perfection. This is very much not about like every single day we shall have a plan. There's lots of days I'll just like totally or weeks that I'll just wing it. But at the very least, what I found is even if I text Milo, just like I'll even just dash, I'll just say Monday dash tacos, Tuesday dash whatever. I've always found benefit from even that level of forethought because then it's out of my head. And during the week, I don't have this lingering kind of feeling of, oh, shoot, I have to get on top of that. So, with that, let's have you see some of the tools that we have available through Milo to help with this.
So I just pulled up the dash and kind of what Evni was saying in that last bit here. So if she triaged in any of those items, we can talk about that in just a second. But jumping into our week view, where some of you might have played around a little bit with meal planning, this is kind of the start of our foundational meal planning tools. This is obviously kind of a more detailed looking week. As Evni stressed earlier, it can be as simple as writing takeout. Some weeks it might be blank. But the idea is that when you come into Meal Planner, start by choosing which week you're planning. Maybe you're going out of town in 2 weeks and you have help coming, or you've got a really busy thing with work. You can always plan in advance. So choose which week you're starting with. And then first and foremost, choose what meals you care about. So if you're not a breakfast family, you can always remove that block. If you're not a lunch family, these are blocks you can easily kind of come back to. But once you are ready to start to add meals, a couple ways that we're trying to save that thinking or share that collaboration. When you put your cursor in the box, not only will we remember previous meals that you've added, but we also always have those Milo suggestions down here at the bottom. And so, for example, if you've got broccoli in the fridge and you're like, gosh, we have to eat it this week. If you started to type broccoli, not only will you see, oh, I've added some previous items myself, you'll also see those Milo suggestions down here. And Avni can speak a little further to this, but these are actually recipes that she's handpicked that said, I've tried these with my family. I truly believe these are really good go-to recipes. So you can always find those there.
Yeah, absolutely. I will say these are 80% of the recipes that are found in Milo are ones that I have personally made. And my bar is that I do want it to be healthy. I do want it to be yummy, but it actually very much needs to be easy. I come through the lens of I'm coming into the kitchen at 5:30 or 6 o'clock, and I need it to be really easy to be able to do with minimal dishes. And so just so you know that the things that you'll find in Milo as suggestions come through that very high bar or that high lens to be able to be as easy as possible for you.
And the nice thing about meal planning, what I found we do in my family is sometimes, if I find out about an event or something's going on, sometimes I'll come in here and I'll just start by saying something like, we're going to do pizza delivery. And I might not have even started to plan that week yet, but I'm just going to go ahead and save that. And then as I get closer to that week, whether you plan Friday, Saturday, Sunday, anything that you've already added, you can come back here and continue to add to. So you don't always have to have all 7 of your dinners planned out, whether you're doing themed nights or whether you're doing a couple of those homemade or easy peasy or frozen, you kind of fill them in as you go. If you are doing one of those kind of more detailed recipes, you're trying something new, whether you're doing like a special chicken dish, when you hit this edit icon, you can actually link a recipe, you can add ingredients, directions, etc. And the nice thing is that when you save it here, your whole family, whether it's just you and your partner, or whether you've got a caregiver, everyone will be able to see that here in Milo. So anybody can kind of reference, oh yeah, here's that recipe. Maybe get started without you if you're running late from something. Couple last things I'll show with Meal Planner is we do have this Get Inspiration button. If you're just having one of those weeks where you're fresh out of ideas or you want to try something new, we actually do change a lineup every week. And so if you click that button, it will show, here's the 5 easy peasy lunches we've picked out. And then down here at the bottom, same thing, you can find those go-to dinner recipes. We've also been saving them here on the dash as well. So each week you'll be able to click in, you can see kind of a preview of what the lunch and dinner are. And then we actually do link out to all of the ingredients and recipes there as well. And then finally, circling back to Avi's idea around triage, if you get a recipe shared by a friend or you come across a recipe, triage that in. And then what we recommend is you can actually save it in files under meals, and you'll be able to find those when you're in your meal planner. So just make sure that you choose that category meals, and that's what will show up into this meal category here.
And then do you
I'm
want to quickly just show the PDF so they can print
Oh,
it?
absolutely. Thank you. So, brand new feature launched this week. Super excited. Up here in this left-hand corner, you can actually PDF your week. So, this will include your meals, your schedule, and then we also pull in the top 3 priorities that you've chosen and any item that you've tagged as mission critical. So, something that needs that extra reminder or kind of an extra flag for your family, that will show up in its own section on the PDF. And then just as a quick reminder for those who are new to that, that actually also gets sent to you on Sunday as well as just a reminder as you're planning out your week. So you get your Sunday text, you see, oh, that's right, we've got a baseball tournament on Saturday. Right there, when you're starting to plan your meals for the week, you can go, well, we're not going to be home, so let's make sure Saturday is either something we can pick up or leftovers that we can quickly grab.
Perfect. And yeah, again, as everyone just kind of tries it out, plays around with it, what we've tried to do is build it for as simple as possible. And so for anyone that just kind of wants to go in and write one line kind of things, all the way through to you want to have much more of that complex kind of recipe or link or any of those types of things, we're trying to support all of those different pieces. The biggest thing that we're trying to support, though, is having you feel like you can put the plan together and share it with your collaborators, and it's as simple as possible, and so you're not trying to store that and do all that stuff on the fly. So with that, that's sort of like very much a 101 of how to think about meals. There's so much more that we can get into that certainly goes into food and like the family meals and all that kind of stuff. And we can cover that in other office hours. But for right now, hopefully you have enough to be able to get started to first have a conversation and just to think on what is it that food and meals mean to my family at whichever phase, and feel free to evaluate that, every quarter, every year, whatever it might be. Then think about what are the meals that really work for my family, and it can be frozen, it can be takeout, it can be meal prep in addition to the homemade. And then think about actually this week, what logistics, what meetings, what all of those things, and build the plan in that context. And then we just showed you a really quick tour of the tools to be able to support you across all of those things. So if anyone has any questions ever, please text them in, please email them in hello@joinmilo.com. If you have suggestions for additional office hours, please send them in. But otherwise, I wish you luck and yummy meals.